All right, welcome everyone to the July 2022 meeting of the Memphis Astronomical Society. Hope it's cool enough out there or warm enough out there, whichever one it is for everybody. In the middle of our typical summer heat wave, but all is good. Welcome. Thanks for coming out tonight. We're going to go ahead and get started. We got another great program for you. One of our own, our very own Ric Honey, is going to give some background on the history of astrophotography. So again, this should be a very informative presentation. And Ric has certainly helped me out over the years with a lot of the telescopes that I own. So we'll get into that. But before we get started, again, we're the Memphis Astronomical Society. Oh, by the way, want to say hello to all of those on both YouTube and Zoom that are logged in tonight remotely in the comfort of your homes, hopefully air-conditioned. Thanks again for joining us. And yeah, we're all applauding, so thanks again for logging on. We're the Memphis Astronomical Society. Again, we're a nonprofit public service organization promoting interest in education, astronomy, and related sciences. If you would like to engage with us, you can go to our website, memphisastro.org. If you're not on our email list already, just click the join button and you fill out a form and we'll add you to our email list. And basically we'll send you notices whenever we have an upcoming event, whether it's a meeting like this or an observing session, just anything related to what we do. So that's how you get involved, or how you get on our list. Of course, you can always go to joinmas.com also, into your name and your email list. And again, getting on our list is probably the best way to stay in touch with us and to get information on basically what we got coming up. Now, if you're interested in our services for outreach, whether it's a presentation or an observing session, we also have a link for that on our website. Just go to the upper right there, contact, click on that. It'll bring down a separate form, schedule talks and presentations, and then it'll bring up a separate form, fill out as much of those details as you can, and again, we'd be happy to come out to your group. We do libraries, we do schools, any kind of outreach event. We do events here for the Mosh Planetarium when it's clear. So yeah, if you're interested in our services, just fill out this form. The more information you can give us, the better. And we'd be happy to come out. Got this email. Hello, my name is, and I'm not a member of the MAS. I found out about the organization when I was looking up places that could be great stargazing spots. That's when I found out that the MAS held public observations at certain times of the year. I wanted to ask if this is something that had to be paid for, and if only members can attend the viewings or not. Also, I was wondering if you could share any information about the observations, if able, because I would love to be able to go to one. Thank you and have a great day. You do not have to be a paying member to participate in any of our meetings, outreach events, or observing sessions. Just show up. It's free and open to the general public. Again, we host dark sky observing sessions around the time of the new moon, about twice a month. If it's clear, we send notices out the day of the observing session. So again, check the weather and check your email that day to see if we actually are going to be meeting that day, depending on what the weather conditions are. But no, you don't need to be a paying member. The more the merrier, come on out. In fact, if you own a telescope and you love to show off, we're always looking for those kinds of people because we have outreach events. We got people that just come out to our observing sessions and outreach events, and they bring their telescope, and that's an invaluable service to us. We do stuff at, again, local libraries. We've got a semi-annual star party that we do at Village Creek State Park near Wynne, Arkansas. We always need telescopes for that event. We're planning one again in the fall, sometime in October. So definitely come on out, bring your telescope. If you don't have a telescope, just show up. If you would like a telescope, I'm looking to get rid of a couple of them for free. So contact me. They're a little older, but they still work and they're still functional. This falls under the category of my wife is getting sick of me because I have too many telescopes in the attic, so I am looking to save my marriage. Please take one of these off of my hands. I have a 10-inch, I have a 6-inch. Please. One of them is going to have to go, either one of the telescopes or me. I'm not sure which, but please spare me from the doghouse. If you want a telescope, you're on your own for the eyepieces and accessories, but I got the optical tube and the stand and everything else. Just let me know. Anyway, just a little FYI. Okay, on our website we also have a calendar of events. Some of you are asking, like, when do we have scheduled events coming up? So for July, not much going on the next couple of weeks because we got a full moon coming up. Toward the end of July, the 23rd and the 30th, we have dark sky observing sessions scheduled at Burton Sugar Farm. So most of the action this month, July, doesn't happen until the very end. And August the 6th, we have an event scheduled at Germantown Parks. And again, we'll send a notice out on this. But again, we need telescopes for this event. So August the 6th, again, we'll send a notice out. That's the address. But if you have a telescope and you can come on out and participate in that event, again, more the merrier. So not much going on until it's the 3rd, 4th week of July. But that's essentially where we are with the moon cycle. Okay, now another way that you can get involved in our community is through the MAS Slack site. And we talked about this at the last meeting. It's worth mentioning again. Here's the link. I don't expect you to memorize this. We will send an email out, and you can join the MAS Slack site. And there's a lot of it's a great way to, again, interact, get your questions answered, share information. We do this for the MAS Board of Directors. This is basically how we communicate and approve so that we're not just trading emails all the time. So,
Jeremy.
Yes.
You may want to make a tiny URL for that so it'd be easier for people to like write it down or something.
Oh, sure.
Like a link shortener.
Yeah, I could do a bit.ly. That's true. I could have done a bit.ly. Should have done a bit.ly. There will be an email going out after this meeting. If you're on our email list, you'll be able to click on this link and join it. And you can do it via web browser. You can download an app on your phone. Ann is here. If you'd like to speak to her after the meeting, I just put her on the spot. Sorry about that, but she's kind of the expert on this, so she can inform you more about that as well. But this is another great way to get involved in MAS and just kind of stay in contact with our community. All right, I want to take a moment again to welcome some new members. I will not put you on the spot tonight because I can only see 2 spotlights, but I do want to just say welcome. Scott Buskirk, approved. June 22, welcome to the Memphis Astronomical Society. As well as Clifford Camilmi, I'm going to butcher this last name. Are you here? Okay. If you're here, just raise your hand or interrupt me. But Clifford, welcome to the Memphis Astronomical Society. Baker Darlington, and Issa Kemp. Isa. Welcome. Big round of applause for our new members. Welcome to our society. Thank you for joining. And again, a reminder, if you're a member, you get access to our newsletter, The Meteorite, unless, of course, you're Wes, who's sitting in the back, and he's been a member for 2 years, and we've only sent him 1 issue. I deeply apologize. Got to get back on our game here. If you are a member and you have not been receiving the Meteorite regularly, please let me know, and I will make sure that we correct that. And I'll send you, I've got all the issues. I'll send them, we got them all the way back to 1957, so you can have any issue you want. You want to sit down some weekend and just like binge read all the Meteorites. But anyway, if you haven't been getting it, it's my fault. I deeply apologize. We'll get that fixed. Check out this issue of the Meteorite, though. Okay, we're going to introduce a new segment this month, and it's called Astro News, just a few tidbits of what we've got coming up in the world of astronomy. And for that, I'm actually going to turn the meeting over for just a few minutes to Sarita. So Sarita, if you want to come up.
You can
Take
just
that
leave
mic.
it here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And here's your clicker.
Okay, so we were talking, I serve as secretary on the committee, and during the meeting we were talking.
You need a microphone.
Is it not on? Can you hear me? Okay, there we go. I had to hold it. I didn't realize that. So Jeremy said people are probably going to be tired of seeing me out. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. What was I thinking, right? These are big shoes to fit in, but I'm going to try nonetheless. So these are not necessarily astro news, but some tidbits from here and there and trying to make it light. But at the same time, we'll still continue to talk about astronomy. So as New Horizons flew past Pluto and Plutonian system, It did give us a lot of things to look at, very beautiful, but it also solves, while it solves some information, gave us some information, it also posed us a lot of riddles, lot of mysteries. What you are looking at over here is Charon. It's an oversized moon of Pluto. You can see it hosts the red cap, and that red cap is actually an odd color if otherwise the grayscale landscape. So what's causing this gray cap, right? So they looked around, scientists did some models, looked at the New Horizons data. See, this red cap is composed of tholins. Tholins are organic material that is sticky and gooey. So here is what scientists found out. They think during the summer, Pluto loses methane, and that methane lands over as frost on Charon. The UV light from the sun breaks down that methane into higher compounds, into tholins. Now this tholin is not as volatile as methane is, so it keeps on accumulating on the North Polar Cap. What causes it to go to North Polar Cap is the atmospheric surges that happen during the summer. Charon does have a very thin atmosphere. And every single cycle, the long summers and the long winters, the tholins keep on accumulating on North Pole, and that gives us the red cap. Mystery solved. We talk about astronomy. Astronomy is all about looking up. But we also look back in the history. We are all looking back in the history when we are looking up at the stars. So being nostalgic, 114 years ago, we had this big, huge airburst over Siberian forest. This airburst flattened the land over there, killed all the life over there. Fortunately, there was no other damage. Eventually, we figured out what caused it. It was a 65-meter approximately wide asteroid that came too close and exploded in Earth's atmosphere, causing the shock wave that flattened the forest. If anybody has tuned in through news recently, another asteroid about 12 feet wide is going to pass very close at about 23% of the Earth-Moon distance. It's going to pass very close to Earth tonight. We know it is coming. How? The Tunguska event taught us that these events can happen in our lifetime. So most of the space agencies are now monitoring these objects, and they are assessing the impact that may cause because of these near-Earth objects. So either I am going to know and we are able to divert that incoming asteroid to some other place. If not, I would know that I am going to go by dinosaur's way, right? So we are still talking about being about history, right? So most everybody knows William Herschel. He was born in mid-17th century in Germany. At very young age, moved to England. We all know him as the great British astronomer. We know about his telescopes, huge telescopes that he handmade. We know about the deep sky survey that he performed. Many of the Messier objects that were identified turned out to be the star cluster because of his work. And everybody knows about the planet Uranus, the new planet since antiquity, right? That he was made famous instantly, overnight. He collaborated a lot with his sister, an astronomer, Caroline Herschel, and an astronomer in her own sense, right? But who knew he was also, at least I didn't know, he was an accomplished musician. He was very proficient in many musical instruments. Oboe, I have to look it up what oboe looks like. I didn't know that. Harpsichord, then violin and organ. He had 27 compositions under his belt and has performed on every single instrument that he knew and has given multiple concerts throughout his lifetime. That's a talent indeed in my mind. He collaborated in music also with his sister, and the house that they shared in Bath is now a William Herschel Museum. He also was appointed as a director of the local musical society, which is an honor in itself. So this is all I have for today. Let us know if you have endured me well, okay. If not, you won't see me again. But back to you, Jeremy.
All right, thank you very much, Surya. I got it. In other news, 4 days. Astronomy is about to change. We got these images coming out from the James Webb Space Telescope. In fact, a couple days ago, they released this image. It's a test image of the, arguably among the deepest images of the universe ever taken. So we are on the cusp, ladies and gentlemen, of a new frontier, pardon the pun, in astronomy. And it'll be very exciting to see what comes out of the James Webb Space Telescope. The first fully formed pictures are set for release on July the 12th, but NASA provided an engineering test photo on Wednesday, July 7th, the result of 72 exposures over 32 hours that shows a set of distant stars and galaxies. The image has some quote-unquote rough around the edges qualities, NASA said in a statement, but is still among the deepest images of the universe ever taken and offers a tantalizing glimpse at what will be revealed in the coming weeks, months, and years. So we will see what comes out of this. Very exciting news.
Live from NASA, 10 o'clock Tuesday morning.
Live from NASA, 10 o'clock Tuesday morning. Who's watching it?
I am.
Absolutely. All right. Is it Eastern? Okay, so that'll be 9 Central. Make sure you get your time zone right. Okay, thank you. All right, I want to talk about some of the things that we did this past month. Collierville Library, we did this event on June the 23rd. Again, I want to thank everyone who came out and brought their telescopes. It was a challenging night, not only because of the heat, but no planets, no moons, nothing bright to look at, and of course an urban area, but it actually turned out very well. And it was a great event. Charity spoke from Pinecrest and the Nature Center, and then so we had a presentation indoor, and then we had several telescopes outside. So it was a great event. And of course, many of you saw this once in a lifetime opportunity to see a planetary alignment. Brian and I actually got up early in the morning, went to Lake Arkabutla, and this was the scene. Beautiful morning, and he took this picture. You can see them all in a line here. So it was a magnificent morning, and it was really spectacular to see this. So, and we have other pictures on our Facebook page as well, so be sure and check those out. Richard took this image, Richard Kimball. This is kind of a, what do you say, is it, what is the technical, is it merged? Or?
It's a composite.
Composite.
It's multiple pictures layered.
Multiple pictures layered. And you can see here he's got Mercury, he's got Venus, and he's not only got the crescent moon, Mars, he's basically got the 5 classical planets, but he's also got Uranus in there, and he's got Neptune. So all the planets and the moon were in alignment this morning. I mean, you really get a sense of the ecliptic and the solar system, and that we're one planet in this plane, if you will, of the planets. So some great images. Richards is on our Facebook group, as well as some others. So this was it's a great event, so check it out. And Burton's on the 25th. We were there. That was another great night for observing. Actually, the weather was great. It cooled off a little bit. Seeing was really good. Not a lot of bugs, not a lot of mosquitoes, no dew. So it worked out very well. Had some newbies as well. Here's an image that Steve Wright took of the star trails. And then these are all the people whose names I can't mention because I don't want to use inappropriate language who were driving when he was trying to take this shot, but anyway, you gotta go, you gotta go. Brian took this image of the Milky Way from the southeastern sky. You can see he's caught a meteor. There's Antares and Scorpius and Sagittarius, the Milky Way. I believe that's Lagoon right there. And you never know what you're going to see when you go to Burton Sugar Farm. You never know. I mean, I tell you, I get this question once in a while, and the answer is yes, they are out there. They are out there. Now, I think they're looking to harvest us for food. So this is not going to be a friendly encounter. So we don't know when, we don't know how, but I'm telling you, if you are obese, I would get your act together because, you know, those who have more girth are going to be first in line. You're going to be more expendable. So that's incentive. And I did not know this either, but on iHeartRadio, they have a UFO day. So in the literal sense, I do believe in UFOs, okay? What is a UFO? It's an unidentified flying object. I mean, for a lot of people, Venus is a UFO because they don't know what they see when they're looking up there. So it could be something. Now, UFO versus flying saucers with little green men visiting Earth from other parts of the galaxy, that's a bit of a stretch for me. I don't know if I can quite get there yet, but in the literal sense, yes. Unidentified flying objects, who knows? But anyway, Brian took that picture too.
Their heads are smaller and they got 4 arms.
Right, exactly. Okay. And we got a comet. Steve took this image of, now this comet, it's not a Hale-Bopp or a Leonard or a Neowise. It's a fainter comet, but it is available, and pretty spectacular image that Steve took that night of Comet C 2017 K2 Pan-STARRS. Still around if you want to try and catch it. And where are my astrophotographers in the room? All right, here's a challenge for you guys, and you got to deliver, all right? Next week, the 15th of July, we have a close encounter with M10, the globular cluster in the constellation Ophiuchus. And here it is in the night vision. But this would be a spectacular shot. So if you're out there and you're looking for a challenging target or, you know, an opportunity here, we've got basically this comet, K2 Pan-STARRS, in close proximity to the globular cluster M10 in the constellation Ophiuchus. In fact, Richard, if you wouldn't mind, we got the planetarium, we might as well use it, right? So, like a kid, I'm telling you, it's a toy. Let's use it. So let's just kind of show you here kind of what we're looking at to enlighten you. For that, I'll just back up here a minute. So,
You said the 15th?
15th, so that'll be, yes, July the 15th, next Friday. And again, you're looking due south. And when is astronomical twilight? A little after 9 o'clock? Okay. It gets dark late this time of year. So assuming you're looking due south, and we'll dim the lights here a little bit if we can. Again, here you can see Scorpius right here. There's the bright star Antares, the red supergiant. You can see the tail curling around. There's the core of the Milky Way. And you can see Sagittarius. And Richard, if we can go to about 10 o'clock p.m. Central Time. All right, so this is what the sky is going to look like if you're looking due south next Friday, the 15th. I apologize for our virtual audience. But basically July 15, 10 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And if you look above Sagittarius, let me get my bearings here. Actually, it's above Scorpius. You can see the constellation Ophiuchus that curls around here. That's Rosselhag right there. And some pretty cool targets. But if you look right about there, see how good I am. Richard, if you can bring up M10. Oh, it was off by just a little bit. There's your globular cluster. In fact, there's 3 of them right in a row right here. There's 10, I think there's 11 and 12, and then 14 is over here somewhere. But that's where you're going to be looking next Friday, again, around 10 o'clock p.m., and see if you can snag that comet and that globular cluster. And send it to us, put it on our Facebook wall. This is your opportunity to show off. This is, yeah, send us your images. There you can see what this globular looks like. Globulars are fantastic, and they're quite abundant in the summer skies. So, yeah. So there's M10, and then that comet will be very close to it. Yeah. Whoa, here we go. Let's get closer. Now, Richard, if you could go forward just a few minutes, let's go to 10:30 p.m., if you don't mind. One of the challenges you're going to have, in fact, let's go a little further. Let's go to 11. I apologize, we got that spotlight. I'll see if I can block it with my bald head. We've got a just past full moon rising here. And again, this is what, 11 o'clock p.m.? All right, so you got to be on your game if you want to catch M10 in that comet. So you've got basically maybe 1 hour, depending on when the sun sets, just after 9. And by 11 o'clock, it's already up high enough where it's going to wash out this sky. So yeah, it's going to be not too hard as far as location, but you got a bright moon to contend with around 11 p.m. So yeah, got to be on your game. Make sure you're set up early. And I look forward to seeing the results. So, all right, enough play for the planetarium. So, Comet C2017 K2 Pan-STARRS. And since we're at it, I thought I'd show you a couple other objects. Now, here, of course, is the chart for Sagittarius. And if we zoom in on this part, you're basically looking right here. And this, of course, is what makes summer so great. But if you follow this star up, you can find this star. It's naked eye visible. It's a little fainter. That's basically the steam coming out of the top of the teapot. And then, of course, if you ride up the Milky Way, you can find M17, the Omega Nebula. We won't bring it up right now, but that's another spectacular target. And, of course, you've got Lagoon right here and Trifid right here. Several of our astrophotographers have captured both of those objects in the same field of view. So that's also sensational. What I want to show you, though, is maybe a couple other objects that don't necessarily make your radar screen that are right in this area. There's a lot of stuff, obviously, you can see right here. Not just Messiers, but there's also some really cool NGC objects and also some dark nebulae. If you go right here off of this star, Al-Nazal, I think is how you say it. It's right off of the end of the spout, if you will, of the tea kettle. You'll find these two objects right here, basically two globular clusters in close proximity, NGC 6528 and 6522. And if you go just below that star, you'll see this right here. That's B87, and that's also could be pretty cool. It's a dark nebulae. Anything with a B is dark nebulae. And we had the opportunity to see both of these recently, so I'll just show those to you. Here are these two globulars in the same field of view. And again, this is a night vision eyepiece, so this falls under the category of $350 used 10-inch Dobsonian with $4,000 eyepiece. The money goes into the eyepiece, not the telescope, folks. So that's why Brian's my best friend, but anyway. It is a pretty cool sight to see, even if you have a regular eyepiece. Two globulars in the same field of view. And now B87, this dark nebulae, was actually pretty cool too. So if you have the proper filter, you can see the kind of the structure here of that dark nebula. So it's a lot of stuff this time of year in both of those constellations. So anyway. Okay, lastly, and then we'll get to our main program, we have an astrophotography meeting, focus group that meets usually about once a month around the time of the full moon. So if you're on our email list, stay tuned. We'll send out more notices about that. And that's hosted by Ric Honey. And speaking of Ric, I'm going to go ahead and introduce him now as our featured speaker for tonight. And he is going to give us a background on a brief history of astrophotography. So Ric, take it away. Give him a hand of applause, everybody.
All right, thank you. Wow, bright lights. Start that PowerPoint presentation if you would. So I volunteered to make a presentation, and I thought, well, you know, something simple, something easy. I've played a lot with astrophotography over the years. I can do this pretty quick. And boy, was that a rabbit hole I wasn't expecting to fall down. There is quite a lot of fun, interesting information about photography and astronomy on the internet. A lot of nice things, a lot of good things to read. What I'm going to try to do is a very brief origins thing. So it turns out about as soon as photography started happening, people started trying to take pictures of stuff in the sky, the moon in particular. And but all that comes back to this whole camera idea. And I had no idea that this thing called camera obscura, this was an idea, basically it's just pinhole projection, and there's writings that indicate that was being done as much as 400 to 500 years BC. There are even some archaeologists that think that that may have had something to do with some cave paintings and stuff. Hey, what you can see here is that there's a pinhole in a curtain here or something, and the object is showing up here of what's the sun's shining on out here. And this is an actual recent photograph of this there's a hole in a roof tile, and you're seeing an upside down image of what's across the street. And so there's the beginnings of it. They couldn't record the image, but that you've got a way to project image. This is the first photograph that is known of. This seems to be consensus on the internet about this one being the first photograph ever taken. There are other things that look like first that there's some disagreement about. But this fellow, oh good grief, Joseph Nicephore Nepos or something, I forget how it's pronounced, took this picture using a bitumen coated plate. It was very insensitive material, but it captured the image, took about 8 hours. And this happened in 1826. In 1861, if you've studied astronomy or physics at all, you know who James Clerk Maxwell is. He solidified our understanding of electromagnetism and light and the principles of color and light being different frequencies of light. And he took the first color picture. And this is a 3-color ribbon and bow that he took an image of. And this was presented in 1861. And not long after that, we get the first image of a solar eclipse. And this was done in 1851. So this was before the Maxwell's color picture. But this was using a process called daguerreotype. And this stuff was, this was interesting because daguerreotype used a highly polished silver surface on copper. So they would like electroplate a copper sheet with a thin coat of silver and then polish it and then expose it to light and then treat that, fix it with mercury vapors. So you'd heat up mercury enough to boil and soak this thing in mercury vapors. That's just so deadly, it's unfunny. But oddly, this method stuck around for quite a while, and these images were very non-robust. You just wipe your finger across it and it would smear it. So they were immediately put under glass and sealed up in some kind of container. The method was invented in 1839, and this is the very first image of the moon, successful image. What they realized too was that for images like the moon, they had to have tracking telescopes, and that wasn't something that anybody had before this. So John William Draper created a telescope with a drive and took this image. This is one that has survived much better. This was taken in 1852 at the Harvard Observatory, where John William Draper's son had built a telescope that was being used there. Draper was also his wife. He died in his 50s, I think, or something. His wife funded the spectral study of stars for the Harvard Observatory, and that has become basically the Draper catalog of star spectra, which is still used to this day. John William was his father. This is the first image of M42, and this was taken by Henry Draper, and this is where I talk about what his wife did after he died. There's an excellent book called The Glass Universe by Dava Sobel, who talks about the women that worked they were called computers back then. They were ones that did all the analysis of the spectra that were taken on glass plates and recorded at the Harvard Observatory. They also had observatories in South America and an island out in the Atlantic, I think. But this is when astrophotography became science and not just something to look at. These are, they catalog positions and they catalog the spectra. One of the next big breakthroughs in cosmology was done by this fellow. Edwin Hubble used the 200-inch telescope at Palomar to look for certain types of stars. Eventually, he basically worked out that all the galaxies that we could see from us were receding away from us very fast. Redshift was the key point there, and he's sitting in the where the camera goes. They would load this. An observer or he would sit in this thing all night changing plates and what have you, and even, and this was pretty cold. Here's a fellow changing a plate on one of those on the camera. That's serious astrophotography. And then, of course, we named another telescope after that fellow, and you've all seen pictures that this thing produces. And of course, it's not using film, it's electronic, and the digital camera revolution had begun. Amateur astrophotography, I have no idea when the first amateur, well, honestly, Draper was the first amateur. He was not an astronomer, he was a chemist. So this was all hobby for most early astronomers, and it turned into science. This was my first astrophotography camera. It's a purely manual camera. You shutter, that's all it's got, and there's no aperture control without a lens. And this was patience building. So you go out, you set up a telescope. I had a 10-inch Parkes. It was called an HIT. It was a dual mode telescope. It operated as a Cassegrain or as a Newtonian, and one was an f3.5, the other was an f13. And you would spend a lot of time getting it polar aligned, and then you set up and start taking images. And of course you take long exposures, 20, 30 minutes, a couple of hours. You would sit there with another telescope mounted on there called a guide scope, and you would try to keep a star that you've chosen as your guide star centered on the pair of crosshairs by adjusting the telescope mount periodically as the clock drive was rotating it across the sky. You had to take all kinds of notes because you wouldn't have any result right away. You've got to run this roll of film out. It might take you 2 or 3 trips to the field to shoot up one roll of film. Then you send it off to get the film processed and developed, and it comes back, and you need to be able to look at it and go, all right, why is this picture bad and why is this picture good? And you can go back to your notes and try to figure that stuff out. And of course, this is the same kind of process that professionals were going through as well. But this was, the thing that always got me was, you're sitting there at the eyepiece for an hour, say, and you're guiding along, and then you nod off and you bump the telescope and you got to start over. That was no fun. You needed a camera that didn't take batteries or didn't need batteries to operate, because and many of the times this was getting so cold a battery wouldn't last very long, and you needed a camera that had a manual shutter so you could keep it open as long as you needed. Film wasn't very sensitive, and one of the tricks that somebody came up with, I'm not sure who invented this, I'm sure it was a commercial invention, but it turns out if you soak that film in nitrogen gas followed by hydrogen gas, you can cause the silver oxide molecules to be more readily uptake whatever it is they do when a photon hits them. And this was the kit you would need to hypersensitize your film. You'd actually put your film in this container, pump out all the air, and then fill it with nitrogen, and then at some point pump out the air, and fill it with hydrogen. And I never went this route. By the time that I started looking at this, there was companies across the country that would do this and sell you film that had been hypersensitized. That was fine. You buy a roll or something, but you had like a limited time to use it before that hypersensitization was not effective anymore. So this was about when I quit playing in astrophotography with film and started using digital cameras, because this is about the time digital cameras started coming about. So digital cameras, believe it or not, Einstein invented those. He didn't know he did, but he identified the photoelectric effect and got a Nobel Prize for that in 21, wasn't it? I think it was, yeah, 21. And then when engineers decided to use that effect, trying to build a bubble memory. Essentially, they were looking for a way to move a charge from one place to another in a memory matrix for computing. And it turned out that this led to the actual using this for light, because they knew that they saw the effect that light had on those junctions. The first CCD cameras were line scan. This is what a line scan camera looks like. There's a number of pixels in a row, and you would, after the exposed, you would move, electrically cause that charge to move out across from one pixel to the next. This is a demonstration of what's called a bucket brigade. Basically, photons hit all the pixels, then you march the charge out from one row to the next until you get to the end, and then you march those out the end to read a charge for each of those pixels, or read an electrical charge. If you ever get into CCD sensors, there's something called back thinning, which helps improve the sensitivity to light. I didn't want to go too much into that. And then there are colors. So if you start getting into digital astrophotography, there's two basic ways to do it. You either go color cameras or black and white. If you're trying to take color pictures with black and white cameras, you take 3 different pictures of the same thing. One with a red filter, one with a blue filter, one with a green filter. The net result is a black and white image, but an image whose charge values represent that color. Then you can, with a computer, add those values together and create a color pixel. You can do it also with basically filters on each pixel. And this is how color cameras work today. You've got a 4-pixel array that makes up essentially one color spot. There's 2 greens, a red and a blue. Because the human eye is more sensitive to green, it helps simulate that capability. Then the next bit, so CCD cameras were expensive. When they first came out, even for amateurs, the moderate-sized CCD chips were $5,000–$10,000 for a camera, easy. A lot of amateurs at that point were using webcams and modifying them. Now, they're real small chips, 1/4 of an inch on a side, but they were direct feed into a computer, and they could use computer software to capture the images and control the exposure times and everything of the camera. A lot of the early digital cameras, of course, you have got all automatic controls, so you couldn't control them or make them work in a very low light situation. So webcams were used a bunch. Closed circuit security cameras were used a lot because you could, there were a handful that had controls piped out of the camera so that you could control their exposure time and stuff. Malicam was a big brand famous for doing that sort of thing with those video cameras. And that was the path I went down when I stopped doing film-based astrophotography. I started doing video astronomy for a couple of reasons. One is I got involved in occultation timing, and you could record the event with a good clock like WWV playing in the background. You record it on videotape. You've got the exact time that something went in front of a star and when the star came back again. That process is used to measure the size and shape of asteroids. When you get enough people lined up to make those measurements, you can put all that data together and come up with very precise size and shape of asteroids. But this same video astronomy process also started something called frame averaging. If you're using a video camera to look at stuff through a telescope, it can be very noisy images, especially when you're trying to get that sensitive. And you could remove a lot of the noise by averaging every 3 or 4 frames. So one of the things that I had was some software on my computer that would average frames. Every 5 or 10 frames would be averaged together and create a much clearer image. This same process led to what those in the astrophotography hobby know now as stacking. And you can take a digital image, which is basically a bunch of ones and zeros or numbers, values for each pixel, and use software to add those together in a bunch of different frames and come up with a much sharper, much more detailed image of what you're taking a picture of. The big change that's happened since this started is the invention of CMOS technology chips. They're cheaper to make, I think, yeah, they're cheaper to make. They are noisier, but they don't take as much power, and you can build onboard processing. So you can start, when you've got CMOS chips, a lot of processing that was done on separate circuit boards inside a camera can now be done on the chip itself before it's processed, before it's piped out to be processed by anything else. And that's become real handy. That in and of itself is why your smartphone pictures are so good. It's because a lot of that processing is done on the chip. So, digital advantage. At first, when digital cameras came out, they were too expensive. They were nowadays they're incredibly reasonably priced. They're still expensive, but they are much. The quality camera you can get today for under $1,000 will blow away what you could buy 15 years ago for 10. And they're much bigger chips now, so that you can get wide fields of view, much bigger, broader pictures. You can even use your digital SLR. So if you've got a digital camera that you can take the lens off of, you can put that on your telescope and use it to capture images, and a lot of people do that. This is a picture I took of Omega Centauri. No, I'm sorry, I did not take this picture. I processed the data. I bought the data set. That's what this one was. I've got one of M13, but that I took. But this is Omega Centauri. I bought the data set from a guy in the southern hemisphere and did this image processing. This is something that we work with our astrophotography group that we meet once a month. We talk about how to process your digital images to come up with good results. And we've got some very good experts in our group. And all of you are welcome to attend those anytime. That's a brief history of astrophotography. And I did want to mention next week is the 16th, and I've recently found out I've got a wedding to attend, so we won't be having an astrophotography meeting on the 16th. We'll reschedule that. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
They got old cameras.
What?
They got old cameras.
Well, cool.
Well, you remember old cameras?
Well, I remember cooling cameras. We still cool them, yeah.
Remember developing your own film?
Yeah, no. So, all right. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Rick. All right. So we're going to more or less wrap up here. Before we do, though, is Freddie here? Is Freddie Diaz here? Freddie, see me after class if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, sir.
I've wanted it since I was in 4th grade. I won't get into the details. And Bill is here. I need to see him too. But anyway, does anybody have any other questions or comments? We're going to kind of wrap up tonight. Short and sweet, middle of the summer, summer heat. Richard, if you want to raise the lights, we can go ahead and do that. Nobody has anything else, then basically, that's our meeting for tonight. So we're going to kind of open it up. We have a table out front, so feel free to take. We got star charts, we got postcards, magnets, anything else you want. If you haven't already, if you wouldn't mind just please signing in, and feel free to stay and mingle. And again, we'll send out notices. Next week is kind of a quiet week with a full moon, although the 15th, again, astrophotographers, I want that picture of M10 with the comet if you can get it. So that's next Friday. But as far as outreach events, it'll be a couple of weeks toward the end of the month when we start getting toward the newer, or the back end of the full moon, so to speak. So stay tuned for notices. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thanks everybody for coming out. And that's our meeting for this month.